We are continuing on with our Dropping Dimes Foundation, the movie The Waiting Game, and the ABA series that we've been doing here recently, where we're trying to advocate for some of the ABA players that have been done a great injustice throughout the years by losing their pensions after the so-called merge that happened with the ABA and the NBA. But today our guest is he's definitely Kansas royalty. He's one of the top 10 scorers of all time for the University of Kansas. He's a Final Four standout, a two-time Big 8 Player of the Year, and a certified All-American. He went on to ball out for 13 seasons between the ABA and the NBA, and his impact on the game still echoes today. So, welcome to Mosaic Minds, the podcast where every episode is a colorful blend of perspectives, ideas, and conversation. Each week, our diverse team of hosts brings their unique backgrounds, experiences, and interests to the table. Mosaic Minds is your invitation to join the conversation to see the world through a kaleidoscope of viewpoints. So grab a seat, tune in, and let the mosaic unfold before you. Go ahead and welcome Dave Robisch to the show. Dave, thanks for being on today.
Oh, I'm looking forward to it. It should be a fun conversation. A lot of great memories. A lot of important things we want to talk about with dropping dimes and the ABA NBA merger and relationship. So, should be a good conversation.
Yes, sir. Okay. Well, one thing I wanted to point out, and one of the reasons I thought that you make a great guest is because when you were drafted by the Celtics, and correct me if I'm wrong, but from what I could tell, when you were drafted by the Celtics, you actually chose to stay in the ABA and play for Denver. Is that correct?
That is correct. Back when I came out of college, obviously we had two leagues, so in a way that was a good situation because you had two negotiating points. So, yeah, I was drafted by Boston, and then I was drafted by Denver in the ABA. And so with Boston, I had the deal back in those days with Red Auerbach, and
Nice.
he was a tough negotiator, a tough coach. And then in Denver, believe it or not, another tough guy. He was coach and general manager was Alex Hannum. So he was a tough coach, but he gave me and a tough negotiator too. So it was interesting to go through that whole draft process. But I thought the best opportunity was in Denver because they as I remember back on the negotiations, they were offering pretty much the same type of money, which wasn't by today's standards,
Right.
it wasn't hardly anything. So I said at the end, I said, look, forget the 3-year contract. Give me a 1-year guaranteed contract. And they also talked about a signing bonus. And we'll go from there. So it ends up that Red wouldn't guarantee the 1-year contract. He gave me a little bit more in a signing bonus, but he wouldn't guarantee the 1-year contract. And Denver gave me the signing bonus and a guarantee on the 1-year contract, and I just thought I needed a year to prove myself without any big worries. So I decided to go to Denver, and trust me, I'm not as it turned out, we love Denver, we love Colorado, so I'm glad we actually ended up in Denver and didn't live in Boston.
Yeah, well, and I would think that if the pay was similar, I would think that the more fun choice for those times would have been the ABA. That was the more exciting, kind of flared out league of the two, right?
Oh, for sure. And the people, I mean, when you talk to different people as you go through the years, a lot of people didn't realize all the things that the ABA brought to the table. And as time goes on, you look at the entertainment, the more wide open style of game. Then you get into the All-Star game, and who started the slam dunk contest? Oh, let's figure that one out. It's the ABA.
Yep.
Who developed the three-point shot? Oh, that's the ABA. So it was a more up-tempo game. It brought some more flair and life to the game. And let's remember back when I came out of college in the early 70s and then into the mid 70s before the merger, the NBA wasn't on any great solid ground. I mean, both teams were struggling, or both leagues were struggling to make it, and television revenue wasn't great. Having trouble drawing fans into the stands. So it was a tough time for everybody. And I think sometimes, especially people that are more atone or more and look at the NBA, they forget the struggles that the NBA wasn't doing any better than the ABA at that time.
Yeah.
Hey, Dave, I want to hit the rewind button just real quick here. Let's talk a little bit Rock Chalk Jayhawk, Kansas ball there. What fraternity were you in at Kansas? I read that and I didn't want to misquote that. So what fraternity were you part of there at Kansas?
I was a Sigma Nu.
Okay.
Sigma Nu, and that happened, great thing, short story on that. I mean, my freshman year, and you guys remember, freshmen weren't eligible then. So let's not even talk about how many points I scored if I didn't even get a freshman year. But the one thing, we lived in the dorm, and I didn't particularly enjoy the dorm life. So my easiest way out was to join a fraternity, and at mid-year, second semester, a couple of my basketball teammates were Sigma News, so it all worked out good. I moved into the fraternity house, had a really good experience there, and had a lot of fun and met a lot of great people.
No, Nick's definitely kind of a sports guy and music guy. I'm kind of your sports guy as well, but correct me if I'm wrong. James Naismith, Fog Allen, both from Kansas?
Well, Fog Allen, James Naismith invented the game, but I don't think he was from Kansas. But
okay, got it.
He invented the game back in Massachusetts. But the history of college basketball, if you look at the history and all the coaches and players that have come through Kansas, I mean, you look at James Naismith, the inventor of the game. Then you look at Fog Allen. Then let's talk about Adolph Rupp. Let's talk about Dean Smith, Ralph Miller, coaches that have come through there. And of course, in my mind, if not the best, if you forget eras of time, the most talented, gifted physical player ever was Will Chamberlain.
I agree.
But then you get into discussions about different eras and this and that. But so the tradition, and then you look at, if anybody, have you guys ever been in Allen Fieldhouse?
I have not.
Best college venue for basketball in the country. And I don't care what Duke says, Cameron,
love it.
North Carolina or Kentucky. If you go into Allen Fieldhouse and it's sold out every game, and you witness a game there, there's no better place to watch a game than Allen Fieldhouse.
Let's talk a little bit about the Dropping Dimes Foundation. How did you come across Dropping Dimes, and how did you meet Scott Tarter?
Well, it was interesting. I first met Scott. Obviously, Darnell Hillman and I played together with the Pacers for 2 years after I left Denver, and so we had stayed in touch. And then Darnell was still working for the Pacers when we moved back here to Indianapolis in the Westfield area from where we lived in Springfield and worked for over almost 25 years. But so Darnell and I stayed in touch, and then uh, he started talking, and I learned about dropping dimes and got to meet Scott, and just just an awesome guy, a
Yeah.
big fan of the ABA. Grew up in Indianapolis, and the thing that really boggles my mind with Scott is all the work that uh, he put in on the dropping dimes. He did not take 1 cent,
Yeah.
charge
It's
one
awesome.
fee, did it all on his own time, and created a tremendous foundation. And we got a good board of directors, and he just an amazing guy who grew up here in Indianapolis and loved the game of basketball and grew up watching the Pacers, and just got that thing started with Mel Daniels, and it's been an amazing ride. And I'm just happy to be a part of it since I moved back here. We moved back here in 2017, and then got going with dropping dimes and been staying involved and trying to help promote the cause.
I know we already talked fraternity there at Kansas. We won't go back to those days, but I think from what I understand, and I'm living vicariously through the research I've done, but any team that you've been on as a fraternity, you know, if you have a barbecue or an event in town, you kind of gravitate towards those folks. So is it safe to assume that the Dropping Dimes fraternity expresses the injustice that had happened, but it also expresses the sense of camaraderie and, lack of a better term, fraternity there of the ABA kind of players together?
Yeah, great way to describe it. I mean, once you get involved, then you have a chance to be around Scott and then Darnell, and then then there's board members. But you and when you get involved like that, you sense that feeling of the proud history that we kind of talked about earlier. About a lot of people didn't realize. I mean, still to this day, don't realize the impact that the ABA had on the game of basketball,
Hmm.
and the NBA would not be where it's at today without what the ABA, and not to mention all the players that came from the ABA into the NBA. But that there is a sense of pride for sure when you're around the any of the ABA players that are still with us today. You feel that sense of pride for sure.
What brought you back to Indianapolis? Did the Pacers? Did it kind of end up feeling like home? I mean, like when you think of home, is Indiana or Indianapolis the place that you consider home?
It is now, and that goes back a little bit back to my playing days. We came here in the mid '70s to play, and then we, of course, had to move away and played elsewhere. But we lived here, and then after I was through playing, we came back here after I retired and was trying to look for employment after basketball. So we were here for a while then, but the job opportunity carried me back to Springfield, Illinois, where I went to high school and graduated there. And we lived in Springfield for almost 25 years, and my wife and I both worked in I worked in state government and she worked in county government. And then when we retired, my son Scott, uh, who played at Butler, he's lived in Carmel, and after we retired, he said, "Well, Dad, did you think about just coming back again for that third time and calling Indianapolis and Westfield and Indiana home again?" And when you have family somewhere, it makes it
It sure does.
and we're
Yeah.
very glad we did that because Indianapolis and Westfield. The Westfield area is just growing like crazy, but it feels like home, and we're happy we made that move. And let's see, we made that move in 2017. So we've been here like 8 years now. It's hard to believe that, but we've
Yeah.
been back for 8 years.
It's a pretty great city, you know. I always say this, but it's a very underrated city. You know, like there's a lot of things to do in Indianapolis, and the Westville, you know, the North Side, Westfield, Carmel area, beautiful area. You know, really nice place to live. So, yeah, Westfield's there. I had a friend that had a restaurant up there. I think it was called the Local. Have you been up? Have you ever heard of that, or you been in there?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I've heard of it. We ate there a couple times. Yep, the
Yeah,
Local. Yeah, and like I said, I mean, you go out now and there's so much construction, new building going
yeah,
on
Yeah.
because, Carmel's basically run out of room
yeah,
almost. And they keep trying to put up apartments everywhere. But uh, Westfield's it's the number one growing city in Indiana and one of the top 10, I believe, in the whole country as far as growth.
yeah. I've heard that Westfield and like I think Zionsville's another big one. That's
Yeah.
the you
Yeah.
know Brownsburg, but yeah. Yeah, well, hey, you know what? Glad to have you back to Indy.
Yeah.
Have you been to any Pacers games since you've been back?
I go to a few, and I watch some on TV. I gotta be honest. Bob Costas harped on this last night at the banquet we went to. The whole scope of basketball at the pro level and the college level has
Oh
changed.
yeah,
And especially when you go to a Pacer game, it's almost like it's all more about the entertainment than
Yeah.
it is watching basketball.
yeah,
And it's just lost some appeal for me. And obviously, you guys know what's going on with the NIL and the transfer portal. And I've talked to a number of players and people that have followed basketball for a long time, and it's lost some of its luster. And I know I don't feel the same after this year and watching Kansas play and the NIL and the transfer portal and all that going on. It's changed the scenario of what basketball is, and I don't think it's all for the good. And we'll just have to see how it works out. But there's some work to be done, and just kind of it's just kind of changed my opinion about uh, watching basketball at the college level and the pro level.
Dave, I think looking up to you literally there because you're 6'10", right? And I'm only 6'2", so I look up to you. I pretty much have to, right?
Right.
There at Kansas and through the NBA, I've done my research, but I can only see statistics on paper. Talk to me a little bit about how your game, how was your preferred game? Did you like to go up and down? And talk to me about half court sets, how you preferred to play, so the audience at large can get a sense of kind of what your preferred styles were on the court.
Okay. Well, obviously, when I went to Kansas, I was very fortunate to have, a great coaching staff, and the assistant well, Ted Owens was the head coach when I played, and he was there for 19 years. And then Coach Miranda was the assistant coach, and I was very lucky to have him. He never missed one day of my practices from my freshman year all the way through my senior year, and
Wow.
he was a big fundamentalist. We worked a lot on inside moves, but also I had the freedom, especially my senior year, to go up and down more because a faster paced game allows you more opportunities to score, and so it was kind of a mix of inside and out, and learn how to play basketball the right way at Kansas. We played defense, had success, went to the Final Four. And obviously things must have worked out okay because I played for 13 years. But and like I said, Kansas is a special place, and I learned a lot there. Followed the tradition of great players. I mean, like I say, Will Chamberlain, JoJo White was there, Walter Wesley, who played in the NBA for 10 years, and Clyde LaBella back in the early 50s. So the tradition is special. I got great coaching, and also you guys will laugh, but I also had a green light, so I could pretty much put it up when I wanted to. But
Yeah.
so that was a good thing, and like I said, freshmen weren't even eligible then, and so had 3 years and no dunk rule, couldn't dunk. That's the Will Chamberlain rule there.
Yep.
And Kareem couldn't dunk in college. We just couldn't dunk then. So, and then was fortunate enough in the pros to play for some great coaches. I mean, Alex Hannum, Larry Brown, Bobby Slick Leonard here with the Pacers,
Okay.
Doug Moe. So I was blessed to have some really good coaches and great teammates. And one quick little side bit is when we were playing UCLA in the semifinals. Of course, we were both 27-1, so I wish we would have not had to play until the championship game. But we played in the semifinal. We had trailed the whole first half, and then in the second half, I came down on a fast break, hit a jump shot that I shot hundreds of times, and made the basket. Okay, I didn't miss it. I made the basket that would have put us ahead of UCLA in a crucial part of the game, and the ref called me for traveling.
Oh no!
And I've seen the video. I didn't travel.
Yeah.
And to this day, he still knows the ref where he lives. No, I'm just playing. So
and it's funny because of all the shots I made, I was fortunate to do that. But the one that I can't ever get out of my mind is the one that I made, but they took away from me. So,
yeah. Jason.
It's been a good ride.
Jason and I, we had the opportunity. Was it January? Was it back in January? I can't believe it's already been that long. But we had the opportunity to go to Newfields and see the screening of the waiting game. And so you being involved in the Dropping Dimes Foundation, all that. When you first saw it, what was your feeling on it? Like, how did you feel about the movie? Did it bring back some memories and of some fellow players and that kind of thing? What was your take on that?
The waiting game. I encourage anybody that's been around basketball and has a history of basketball to try and see the movie and help spread the word, because it brings out a history. I mean, and I look at it in a couple of different ways, but I look at it, I've looked at teammates that I played with that are no longer with us. I mean, I can't probably name them all, but, I played with Warren Jabali. I played with Fatty Taylor. I played with Al Smith, Frank Card, the list of players that have passed away that weren't able to get the so-called recognition payments that the NBA came out with. So there's that. So I really feel about the players that I played with that are no longer here and weren't able to see the progress that has been made. But then the other thing that sticks out with the waiting game and what's discussed on that is the actual history of the ABA and NBA merger.
Mm-hmm.
And well, that's the key, is that
it's not a merger.
I know you can't really, they didn't want to call it a merger.
Right.
They didn't want to call it a merger. But there was a stipulation agreement in writing that said that any former ABA player, that when the ABA came in, and I call it a merger, but the attorneys didn't want to call it a merger. When that happened, any former ABA player that had that qualified for a pension, it was automatically supposed to carry over to the NBA, whether they ever played a game in the NBA or not. And that's the unfortunate thing that never happened. If that would have happened, we wouldn't be having these discussions that we're having today, and we wouldn't have dropping dimes trying to. Well, I'm glad. I'm hopeful they would still be in existence anyway to help former players that need some assistance at certain times. We still want the Dropping Dimes Foundation, but everybody that qualified would have received a pension. And the NBA and their attorneys didn't see it that way. And unfortunately, that it never happened. So, and then you saw some guys before they passed away, and even now still living, that needed some assistance, and Dropping Dimes was there to help them with some needed assistance for funeral expenses or whatever that need was. So and then the other thing that bothers me is, we talked a little bit about it before, the NBA has never officially 100% recognized the ABA and all the things that the ABA brought to the NBA. Mm-hmm. And they don't recognize officially the points that were scored and to combine ABA and NBA points. They don't recognize, they don't talk about, the ABA started the 3-point all-star contest. They created the 3-point line, which now if you watch an NBA game, it's all wrapped around shooting 3-pointers.
Yeah. That's all.
Yep. And they don't recognize that, the pace of the game. So I have some really mixed emotions. Like I said, my family, I obviously didn't make enough money to retire on playing basketball for 13 years, but I was fortunate enough to work for almost 25 years and work enough to save enough money and have a comfortable life, not an extravagant life, but a comfortable life. And I look at some of the stories that you see in the waiting game, that players that really needed some help, and that pension could have really helped them out in a crucial time and situation. And I just feel like it should have been done. Yeah. If they want to call it recognition payments, whatever, but that it should be given to the players that earned it, and their life would have been a lot better because of it. So I think that the waiting game and getting it out there, I know we've had it out here in Indianapolis, it's been in Phoenix, it's been in Louisville, been back on the East Coast in New Jersey, trying to get it shown in some other cities like San Antonio and Denver, where the ABA was, and just the more recognition, a notice of how the whole thing transpired. I thought that Michael Hussein and his protection crew did a great job in promoting the waiting game and getting the word out. And then you talk to all the players that went through that and see what has happened since, the merger in 75, 76. That's a long time ago. I'm fortunate enough to be here now, but a lot of interesting stuff and some of it I agree with, and some of it I don't.
Yeah.
Dave, I've been blessed in order to kind of say this several times, with several of the players that we've had during that time. But, to sit there and watch the waiting game and hear about the dropping dimes, to say that I wasn't tearing up, man, I'm sitting there crying watching that movie, because with all due respect to you, it's to me, and I didn't live it, but the way I see it outside looking in is, it's not, I don't want to say this. It's not the luxurious lifestyle, but that's what the current guys have. It's just the guy that literally needs his dignity,
Yeah.
you know, like a, you know, maybe his knee's infected and he can't afford a knee surgery. You know, that's not luxury. That's just living. Like, you know what I mean? And what's so cool about it is you've got guys that are X, you know, some are still successful, some are financially secure, but it's that brotherhood that really pulls everybody in. I'm telling you, if you haven't watched the movie, watch it. If you haven't looked at Dropping Dimes, look at it. But I'm pleading with the audience that we have that maybe is not even involved in basketball. Look into this cause, because basically I liken it. I'm a fishing guy. I liken it to a great white shark that's kind of the biggest, baddest. I'm not gonna put the letters out there of which is what. And then you have the ABA. It's like the ABA was your ground floor.
Mm-hmm.
That's up and down. That's the 3-point shooting. That's the red and white basketballs. That's the flair. That's the showmanship. That's the Showtime Lakers. You know what I mean? Before they were, you know, without the ABA, we don't have the current NBA. I do agree with you. It's kind of a 3-point shooting match. It's showmanship. I'm not saying they're not phenomenal athletes. I'm saying the skill and the play is different. So I think just fighting for the guy that needs to be able to have a roof over his head, you know, the guy that all he wants is to have food on the table, you know, to extend his life. And it's just heart wrenching to sit there and think that during those years in which they could have done something, but also to realize that the people are putting their lives on hold for the cause. Man, it's just it's phenomenal being a you know, growing up in Indiana. It's no secret. You know, I played basketball from 2 years old to 38. So I had a 36-year run. I just didn't, you know, not comparing by no means, but I'm saying basketball has been a part of my life. And it's cool to see that the epicenter, in my opinion, is Indianapolis. I think Indianapolis is putting the cause on the mark. I'm going to let you comment on that a little bit because you're more inside than I am on it.
Yeah, I think what you said is right to the point and 100% true. I give you an example, kind of what you were just talking about with Dropping Dimes. One of the guys in the movie was a teammate of mine with the Pacers. Briefly, he was only with the team for a year, a part of a year or so. Charles Jordan grew up here in Indianapolis, went to Shortridge High School, was a heck of a player, and was fortunate enough to play for the Pacers. And then he went overseas, and he was actually, I believe, he was assaulted and had some serious, wherever he was playing overseas, he was assaulted and had some injuries, and was never quite the same after that. And, you know, as Dropping Dimes was created and doing things, he was just, at one point, he was just looking for a suit to go to
church. Yep.
Now, you put that in perspective with the players today, and if that doesn't hit home, then, you know, I don't know what does, because he didn't have the opportunity to play a long time. And obviously he had some struggles, but it all started with what happened to him in Europe, and, you know, wasn't mentally or physically the same after that, and was just looking for some assistance. And as you guys know, there's other stories like that,
Mm-hmm.
but I think that hits home. And to basically, like I'm sure you discussed with Rick Barry and Neto, Bob Netolicky, this whole thing could be put to bed for $5 or $6 million.
Yeah.
The remaining players that are alive and then continue, that played in the NBA and the ABA, but also then the remaining players that were just ABA. But this whole thing could, and $5 or $6 million, that's like, compared to
that's a fine.
That's like
going to the grocery store and buying a bottle of Gatorade.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, it's totally, like, I can't even comprehend when with the new contract that the NBA is going to sign for revenue sharing and their new contracts, we're talking billions and billions of dollars that they're making, and we can't just resolve this and for the sake and for those guys that have went through it, for what the ABA has brought to the NBA. Let's all the players, whether they're ABA or NBA, let's just realize the history and what's gone on, and let's get this thing settled. And then dropping dimes are going to go away, and they're still going to try, and if people are in need, they're still going to try and raise money and help people in need. But Bob Costas brought up a great story last night at the dinner that I was at. He's become friends with Freddie Lewis, as you know, played for the Pacers and played for nine, and he never got any money in the NBA. His whole career, except 1 year, was in the ABA. So that additional money that he received for the 9 years that he played helped. Like I say, we talked about it. It made his life better. Did it make him wealthy for life? No, but it made his life more comfortable and livable. And that's all we want. That's all anybody wants, is to try and live a comfortable life, and
with some dignity. Yeah, like
and
well,
and
go ahead.
so
Sorry.
it's interesting.
It was like Jason was saying, if for our audience, if you haven't seen the movie, you got to see it. One thing Michael and I think Scott said also was that it's not really a movie about basketball. I mean, you don't, even if you're not a basketball fan, it is definitely worth a watch, because the whole point of it is awareness. And, like, I know that I can speak for myself personally. Before, I guess Bob was probably the first person that we talked to where I even knew about, the Dropping Dimes Foundation. That was about a year ago. And, since then, the more that I've learned, it's just, you think that if someone played professional basketball, they played professional basketball, and it just all equals the same thing. You don't think that there would ever be a professional basketball player that would be homeless, or that would need, that would be hungry, or would need a suit for church. Like, you just don't think that those things happen. So I think the more people that see this, I think that the more that this is brought to light, that's going to put pressure on the powers that be, to make this thing come about. And like you said, I think they mentioned it in the movie, but just the charitable donations that the NBA gives away each year is infinitely more than what would put this to bed.
Yeah, or how about the fines that they get from technicals, or you did something wrong and you can't play for 10 games or whatever. That pool of money, that's a big pool of money too.
Yeah.
And like you say, charitable donations, the fines, and that's not even going into their revenue stream of their television contract or anything like that. So I don't know. It to me, going through it at the time that this all happened and the merger happened, to me, the NBA, the powers to be, never have officially realized and recognized how important the influence was of the ABA and what it brought to the table. And I just would hope over these next few years, and the sooner the better, that the NBA recognizes the history and everything that's gone into this. And it's not like we're looking for publicity.
Yeah.
The Dropping Dimes Foundation or the ABA players, we're not looking for the publicity. We're just trying to accomplish what should have happened in 1975 and 1976, and then we wouldn't be having these discussions. So that's my hope. It's one, being proud that played in the ABA, knowing the history of the ABA, knowing the friendships that I've been able to make, the great players, coaches, and what they brought to the game, and then went on, and a lot of them went on to the NBA and brought their skills to the NBA. Let's all be a brotherhood and get this thing put to bed.
Yeah,
with a big smile on my face, I tell you something. I talked to my dad. With all due respect to you, my dad's the exact same age as you, give or take a year. When he mentioned Adolph Rupp, when he mentioned that he knew who you were, because I loaded in and I said, hey, we're going to talk to somebody you've known. And I'm trying to get his mind moving, a little bit. And I mentioned your name, and I'm going to be honest with you. He had to think just for a minute, because that could be anybody. It could be sports. It could be musical, just because he knows the guests we have on are all sports related. But the fact that he knew who you were and some stuff about him and some of the anecdotes you've come up with, he kind of was aware of that. That to me was a fun conversation on the way over to Nick's house that I had from Plainfield over here to Greenwood, having that. So I want to tip my cap for saying, hey, thanks for being that pioneer. Thanks for your humility. And more importantly, I had fun. It's history lessons a little too strong. I think I'm making it too simple, but just do what's right. That's all we're asking for, is do what's right. It's kind of like the guy that deserves something that maybe just needs a little rust or knocked off, or just a little encouragement, or just, a sense of, hey, I did this. This is what I've done, and it's you got to have the first few chapters in a book for a complete book. You know what I mean? And it's just, I think any little bit helps, any little bit of communication, and it's just kind of fighting that giant. It's a fight worth fighting for. It's grassroots. I mean, it has everything in it, and just do what's right. That's the biggest thing I'll leave with.
So we got thewaitinggamemovie.com. That's where you can go to find out where to watch The Waiting Game. And you can also, I believe, pay to stream it right there on the website. We have droppingdimesfoundation.org, I believe, is the website for Dropping Dimes, or you can just search Dropping Dimes Foundation, find out a little bit more about them, make a donation to that. Dave, where can people find you, or do you want to be found?
Like we talked about, my technology skills are not very good. So, if people want to check my history out, I mean, like you guys did, I mean, go to the web and check me out. But, phone, I mean, I have no problem giving phone numbers out to guys like you, but let's
We'll put that in the captions.
Hey, what was going on back in 1973 with you?
Yeah.
Hey, I want to leave you with this, man. From a guy that's played basketball in a silo, from a guy that's paid and moved hay off to the side to shoot in indoor gyms during the winter. It's a privilege to get to walk in your shoes for just a few minutes, and kind of see, the pioneer is a relative term, but just lay in the ground floor, learning the history. Anytime you get to talk to a guy, top 10 Kansas scoring history, I mean, that gets cold chills, you know what I mean? Because I've been an historian since a young guy, grew up in Indiana, northern Indiana. And it's just great to be able to talk with someone, talk cause, talk what's right. And at the end of the day, basketball's the common thread. What do they say, Nick? Is it in 49 other states it's basketball, but this is Indiana, I believe is how it goes. Tip my cap to you once again, and it was nothing but a pleasure. Hopefully you had a good time, and you did a good job, and it was interesting talking to you.
It's been a great conversation, and I enjoyed it immensely.
Yep. Hey, thanks a lot, Dave. If you don't mind,